Let's pretend it is the anniversary of your death. So you died a year ago.
Mm.
Only one visual metaphor or piece of content
Mm.
you created has lasted. Which one do you hope it is?
Mm. That's a thoughtful question. I created a piece very recently inspired by Sahil Bloom's book, Five Types of Wealth. And it's a visual metaphor about financial wealth specifically. And the reason this particular visual really kind of sits home with me is my dad, who passed away a little over a year ago, he lost all of his wealth when we moved to the States from Iran. And we grew up without, like in when I say he lost all of his wealth, all the wealth that he worked his butt off for all of his life, and it wasn't like we were wealthy, but he lost everything that he worked so hard in Iran to build when we came to the States. So what that ended up doing for him is that it shifted his attention towards building that wealth back. And or it's hard to say wealth. It's more like building the ability to survive with money back and not feel like you're going to have your family starve. And so he was obsessed with that. And he worked his butt off the rest of his life, focused on that. There eventually came a point where he had, quote unquote, made it, meaning he had made it to the point where we no longer had to worry about if we were going to be able to pay the rent. It's not that we were wealthy, but he was no longer in a state where it was in always crisis mode. And it took a long time to get there. I remember when I was in middle school, he broke down in front of me just crying because we weren't sure if we were going to be able to pay the rent. But once he was able to, he wasn't able to turn that off. Like, meaning he couldn't turn off that anxiety, that fear, that oh my God, what am I going to do for next month? Like, he couldn't turn it off, even though we were okay. And I would say for the last 10, 15 years of my dad's life, every time I saw him, that's what he would talk about. Even when he had Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, dementia, and he had lost his ability to do a lot of other things, the fear and the anxiety was still there when we would talk. And that's what he would be talking about. He may not even know that I was there. He may not even know it was me, but that's what he would be talking about. Sometimes it would not be coherent, but that's what he would be focused on. And that just struck me how dangerous it can be to focus only on financial wealth throughout the course of your life. So as I was reading Sahil's book and thinking about my dad's life, I had this one visual where on the top is basically a faucet filling up a bucket, and that's your money. That's the amount of money that you're making. And then on the right are three flowers, like relationships and all the things that you should be using water to nurture. So that's what's happening on the top. On the bottom is we have all these buckets of water now, yet none of them have been used to nurture the flowers, and the flowers have wilted. And it is just meant as a reminder to remember why you're building wealth, why you're trying to get money. It's not to say that all you need is love to make life move forward. It is just to say that if you focus only on money to the detriment of nurturing the things that money is supposed to nurture, like it's a means to an end, always remember that, then you will end up regretting a lot, or at least the people in your life that you end up leaving behind. If it's been a year since I've passed, those people will then be living the regret of that focus. And so I just think about that visual in particular, and I hope that it will act as a reminder to my kids and anyone else who may find value in it, that it is important to have enough water. It's important to know that there is water that you can get without having to worry about drought. But just be careful that is not the only focus, and to remember what that water is for. Like the water in and of itself, just building a bunch of buckets is not going to do you any good.